Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Research, Reflection and Practices guest lecture series. And this is guest lecture 27. And just to give a little brief to all the newcomers, this is our learning platform. We try to learn from eminent scholars that we invite for this session. And we are happy and privileged to have Professor Nishara Fernando from the Department of Sociology, University of Colombo, here with us. And also we are very happy to have Savitri Kumsek, was one of our chairpersons at SEPA, knows a lot about the history of SEPA. So, and welcome all of you today. So let me just give a little brief about Professor Fernando. Professor Fernando is currently at the Department of Sociology. Was the former head of the department and the director of Social Policy and Analysis and Research Center. And he has a wide variety of interests from arts and culture, children, disaster and humanitarian relief, economic empowerment, looking at education, environment, poverty alleviation, social services, etc. And his expertise, I think there are many branches to his expertise, but I picked a few that I thought was very relevant to our work. So urban anthropology, political sociology, ethnography, and qualitative research. So Fernando has a number of books to his credit: Post-Tsunami Relocation, Case of God, which is a singular publication. Then he has co-authored several books. One of them I thought was interesting was The Recovery After Extreme Events, Lessons Learned, and Remaining Challenges in Disaster Risk Reduction. Post-Relocation After the Indian Ocean Tsunami, Case Study of Vulnerable Populations in Relocation Settlements in God. And he has a lot of cited articles. You go to research, you can see co-authored number of articles, journals, about 120 publications. This is, I think, one of the most cited academics from the sociology discipline. And to go a little bit about the academia, he has a PhD in human geography from the University of Bonn. And interestingly, his dissertation, which is on post-relocation after the Indian Ocean Tsunami, a case study of vulnerable populations, including relocation settlements in God, that's actually an extension of what that PhD is, what we're going to hear today. And in MP sociology from the University of Colombo, very relevant to us, a sociological study on vulnerability, chronic poverty and livelihood strategies. The case of a low-income settlement. He was a graduate diploma in sociology and research methods, and has a Bachelor of Arts, second author from the University of Colombo. So I would like to formally welcome Professor Fernando. Plus, I think we also interlinked advice. So nice to have you here and talk about the sociological reading of post-tsunami relocates in Galle in Sri Lanka, looking at it after 20 years. Over to you.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present my work on this subject. Just for your information, soon after tsunami, 2005, we did a vulnerability assessment in Galle and Batiklo. That was headed by, I don't know whether you have heard about him. He is one of the vulnerability gurus called Jan Berkman. He has written a lot on vulnerability assessments and even published a very good book on vulnerability assessment. He was the team leader. I worked as a researcher under him, and we did this assessment in Galle and Betitro. That was in 2005. So that was the time where then government has reimposed the buffer zone regulation. So buffer zone regulation was there, but due to the tsunami, the destruction, then government took the decision to reimpose the buffer zone, and they declared no construction zones and did not allow people to move back to their previous place, especially in Galle and also in other areas. But our site was Galle. So that was the point that I thought of, okay, let's explore more on the people who were displaced due to tsunami and also forcibly relocated into settlements situated outside of the city of Galle. And then actually I got the scholarship from the RD to do my PhD and completed in 2010. And then I have been closely monitoring this group settlers for the last, I would say, 15, 16 years. So then we also thought of doing another survey in 2024 just to see the present status of the people who were displaced and relocated into these settlements. And so actually we repeated this in not only in Galle, but also in Pandache. And multidisciplinary team was formed, and we got financial assistance from University of Huddersfield. The topic was 20 years after, then and now, exploratory study of the status of communities relocated in the aftermath of Indian Ocean tsunami in Sri Lanka. So today I'm going to present some findings based on this study. But I have been working on displacement and relocation, as I said, as I told you before, for the last, I would say, like 25 years. So first I observed that the research on people who were displaced due to Colombo City Flood Prevention and Human Environment Development Project. So one of the largest settlements, I don't know whether you have heard about it, Badovita. It's situated very close to Dehiwala. It's in Dehiwala, Badovita. So that was my first study. And it was a failure, but then JICA gave funds to construct the settlements. But knowing the failures, they also started a new project called Gunao Environment Improvement and Community Development Project in 2000. We also did a study, and also I think this is one of the best resettlement projects what I have seen. With a lot of new features and options and people involvement. And then also this 2004 tsunami. And after that, after the media about the incidents, we also did a research on the relocation of media about the landslide victims in Makaldenia with NBRO, and then also with on Aranayaka in 2016. So, so I have been closely monitoring and evaluating the people who were displaced due to different reasons like development, war, and also due to natural hazards. So, as all of you know, this uneven geographical impact of tsunami, and you can see the impact number of displaced and also deaths. But my location is Galle because in 2005 the situation was not very good for me to go to the eastern province or the northern province as a researcher. There were like unclear areas, so then I thought of, okay, just focus this location and conduct in-depth study. So that is why I selected Galle, and there were factors. I mean, due to war, and also, as you can see, after northern and the eastern part, over 100,000 were displaced in Galle, and also the number of deaths were reported 4,214. Now, I think this is also important because then government took the decision to reimpose the buffer zone regulation. They call it as a disaster risk reduction strategy. So using relocation as a DRR strategy. So that means they thought of, okay, if we move out of the people out of the buffer zone, so then we can secure their lives from future tsunamis and other coastal hazards, right? So that was the idea. But also at the same time, we can also further improve, develop their socioeconomic status, in the new settlements. So there were two objectives, like reducing the exposure to coastal hazards and also helping them to develop their socioeconomic status conditions in the new settlement. So that is very important. But when we read more on the relocation, displacement and relocation, so one is, relocate people as a disaster risk reduction strategy. But when you read more on the policy documents published by World Bank or ADB, they say relocate if it is necessary. So knowing that, it's going to be a failure. But in 2012, Robert Muga published a book called Relocation Failures in Sri Lanka, which is very important book, if you have time, read. And also, I think with regard to tsunami, there is another book which was written, The Golden Wave, which is also important. I think that book has already explored unexplored areas, like, who has benefited, like people around. Here I'm talking about people who were displaced and relocated, but that book has discussed people who were not affected but benefited. Right, so that is why they have given the title called The Golden Wave, right? So which is also important. Now, so the point is, we use this as a DRR, but then there was a discussion. Okay, so if relocation is going to be a failure, then there is no point of forcing people to relocate. Then let us try to do something else. But then now the recent discussion is, as you know, we use relocation as an adaptation strategy, right, to protect people from climate change, right? So they say that, there are habitable places and also uninhabitable is a new concept. So they say that, whether we like or not, there are people who are not in a position to live in their previous places. So we have to relocate them into a new place. So whether we like or not, so therefore now there is a new discussion. If that is the case, then how we are going to relocate these people. Then there is another term called planned relocation. So when I listened to some of the stories, actually people, what they said was, the government authorities wanted to move them into planned relocations, but I mean, I don't know what did they mean by. But anyway, so I think now as a sociologist, I would like to stress here one or two important, to present one or two important concepts. Because, now when it comes to relocation, we are talking about voluntary, involuntary. But here I'm talking about involuntary relocation, right? Forced. So the government or the Coast Conservation Department has used the Coast Conservation Act to forcibly, the buffer zone regulation to forcibly locate people. So there is a Coast Conservation Department. They have Coast Conservation Act. There they have clearly mentioned kind of a buffer zone But people have, so they say that, this belongs to the government. So if someone wants to do any constructions, they have to get a permit from the government. But so the point was, soon after tsunami, the government took the decision to reimpose the buffer zone regulation, and they did not allow the people to come back to the actually the buffer zone. So 100-meter buffer zone, now it has already been reduced to 45, 35. Even there is no buffer zone now, even though formally, there is a buffer zone. They don't practice it due to political pressure, but that's another important area which we need to explore later. But I would like to focus more on these concepts like forced relocation. So actually here the first bullet point, the persons are forced to leave their homes or homelands for whatever reason and have been allocated specific areas for them to settle down in their own country with at least minimum resources and services to re-establish their lives. Now, so the Turtle is a very famous person who has done a lot of research on this topic, and they say it's a primarily a political phenomenon. And so he also further argues that, like refugees, forced resettler belongs to the poorest and most politically marginalized members of society, may end up alienated from their government. Then, with regard to Sri Lanka, actually, the forced relocation is identified in the context of the present study, as I have given here. So, according to the Coast Conservation Act, Amendment number 64 of 1988, those persons who live within 100 and 200 meters, respectively, from the permanent vegetation line of the beach in the southern and eastern coast areas were forced to leave their completely or partially damaged homes to live in new places due to political decision taken by the government to fully implement the buffer zone regulation under the Coastal Conservation Act. So that was the idea in 2004, and people were forcibly relocated into, I would say, donor-built settlements, right? Not owner-built settlements, donor-built settlements. This is also important. Now, when I try to further discuss on this conceptualization of forced relocation, I think there are two important social scientists who have discussed, who have presented two different models. Theo Scudder, who is an anthropologist, and he says that there are stages of relocation. For instance, planning and recruitment, coping and adjustments, community formation and economic development, and even handing over incorporation. So there is a relocation is a process. So there are steps that one needs to follow. But the point is, when you look into the what do you call the relocation model implemented by the then government, they have not considered relocation as a process, right? So they were very much concerned about what was the situation before and what is the situation after. So in other words, they were very much concerned about before relocation and soon after relocation. And they are not very much concerned about some time after and long time after. So that here, like the Anthony Oliver Smith or Sorensen, and they have also given some weaknesses with regard to this. But also another model which is also important, Michael Cernia, who is a planner and also has done who is a sociologist, and he said that the relocation will, if you consider relocation as a shock, it will generate a lot of risk and stress situation. So the point is, here he talks about, if we don't properly plan these relocation settlements, then people end up in impoverishment. So in other words, what were the risks that researchers and planners need to identify when it comes to relocation? He has already identified 8 such factors, I would say, right? Landlessness, joblessness, homelessness, marginalization, food insecurity, increased mobility and mortality, loss of access to common property resources, and social disarticulation. So these were the risks where normally a relocated person or family needs to, grapple with. This risk will generate different stress and other risk situations. So the point is, here, by combining these two conceptual models, I also developed my analytical model. Now, for instance, I don't know whether you have heard about when it comes to vulnerability, Professor Hans-Georg Galle, who is one of the pioneers in this vulnerability research area, he argues that there are two sides of vulnerability. For instance, he called it as a double structure of vulnerability: exposure and coping. So, in words, like now tsunami and forced relocation, I identified it as an external shock, right? So this will also, first tsunami and then relocation, this will also generate a lot of risk and stress situations. For instance, income-related, housing and infrastructure, fragmented relationships, and also the conflicts between host and resettled communities. So the resettled families need to, cope with these situations. So in other words, in order to successfully cope with the situation, household has assets matter, because depending on the assets, access to asset will decide what type of actions they should employ in short and long term. And also, you can also see what is the outcome, whether the people have become more and more vulnerable or as after relocation, or whether they have become more secure. But also at the same time, these people have been, suffering from, like, for example, if you Batiklo war during the tsunami period, and also post-war, COVID, post-COVID, and then economic crisis. So there are like macro factors have also impacted on their lives. So we also need to consider, these factors as well. Now, the government, I think, and other organizations, they always try to strengthen the people's asset portfolio, especially soon after relocation. So that's what that is why here I have identified, external intervention like government level ministries, provincial, local councils, national, international organizations, and private business organizations. They make an attempt to strengthen the asset portfolios, forcing people to employ secure coping strategies other than moving them into cycle of poverty. I think this is also important. But we have to see whether what is the present situation of tsunami relocatees. But I also would like to draw your attention to the arrangement for relief and reconstruction. I think this is also very important for us to know. So the national level, then government, they appointed the Center for National Operations under the President, and the Task Force for Rescue and Relief, and also Task Force for Rebuilding the Nation. This is the task force that looked into, call it the Tafran relocation, right? And they closely work with urban development and the housing ministry, relevant district secretaries, divisional secretaries, and also INGOs, NGOs, and other type of donors. But the point is, now, for instance, as I have studied Galle very closely and I have seen, for example, if you take Galle city, this belongs to Galle Forever DS division. People who were displaced due to tsunami in the Galle city, they were forcibly relocated into Akmiman area, which is 10 to 15 kilometers away from the city of Galle. So most of the people refused to move into these new settlements, knowing that they are not positioned to successfully cope with the risk and stress situations generated as a result of this forced relocation. But unfortunately, they also did not have any other option other than moving into new settlement. So the point here that I want to make is that now the Galle DS divisions, the Galle food DS division, they did not have single discussion with Akmimana DS division. They did not know what is happening in their DS division, because they just came to know that, okay, one of the largest settlements are constructing in our settlement. And even the Galle MC, they did not have discussions with Akmimana Pradeshiya Sabha, right? And they were not to accept these people, right? Moving from Galle to Akmimana, which is very important. So I will also present, for the last 20 years, there is no proper waste management system in the Akmimana DS division. So when we had several discussions with the PS, the Pradesh Sabha members, and what they said was, we have only one track and one gully, so this is sufficient for us to just clean the city area, Akmimana, like small town area, and we can't just collect garbage from individual households, right? And that has created a lot of conflicts between host and resettled communities. But then, knowing that they, yes, we know that there are conflicts, because new settlers, normally they just dump garbage in empty land, which are owned by the new settlers. So this has created a lot of conflicts between host and resettlers. But the PS, what they say is that, we have asked them to, come up with their own solutions to manage their garbage, right? But they don't know. They know that how these people, manage their garbage. They just dump here and there everywhere. So my point is, so there was no close monitoring, evaluation of constructions, monitoring of these services. That was not there, right? And as a result of that, I'd like to draw your attention here, because I only focused on donor-built settlement. Why? Because donor-built settlements, people who were displaced due to tsunami and who did not move back to the buffer zone, who did not allow, the government did not allow them to move, mostly relocated into donor-built settlements. So owner-built settlements, normally old houses or anything like that. That means, if your house is situated somewhere out of the buffer zone, then government gave money and also bank facilities for them to get a loan to construct their house. My research focused on donor-built settlement. So here you can see land identification was done by DS, UDA, and donor screening was done by DAFRAN, and somehow, land allocation, you can see, building and planning guidelines, MOU was signed through MOU was signed by through, like, it's a national level. So somehow the donors were selected, and the government has given them government land to construct houses. Now, when it comes to Galle, actually it was the officers, they had an issue of the government land from Galle city area, government land. So I just want to stress that point here, government land, because they say if we go after private land, right, we have to spend a lot to purchase these land. So we don't have money to purchase private land. So therefore, in Galle, they found government land 15 to 20 away from the city of Galle, that is Akmimana area. And that is why most of the large settlements means 50 or more housing units, settlements were constructed in the Akmimana area. So the point is, as I said before, I have been, closely monitoring this group since 2006 up to now. And so these were the objectives of the present study that we conducted. I'm not going to just repeat. But here, we selected Galle and also Batiklo, right? Batiklo. But we did the vulnerability study that was in 2005. After that, we have not closely monitored this group. But then we thought, okay, let's go and revisit the location and re-interview the people whom we have interviewed in 2005 and see the of these people, right? And Galle. So as you can see, most of the people who stayed in the Galle for they were forcibly relocated into Akmiman area. And but in Batiklo, actually, people who lived in this area, right, Manmune North, which is a highly damaged area, and they somehow relocated somewhere within the Batiklo MC area. So the point is, in Galle, as a result of relocation, urban dwellers now have become rural dwellers. And they have already missed the service, right? But Batiklo, they have not missed any service, only the distance was the issue. So the was situated like 4 to 5 kilometers away from their previous settlement. But compared to Galle, it was something like 10 to 15 kilometers away. Now, here also you can see the Galle foregathers. Very few relocated settlements situated in the Galle foregathers area, but large settlements situated in the Akmiman area. And also here you can see the same with the numbers like 144, 92, then we have 78. So altogether, I think more than 1,000 housing units were constructed in this area compared to Galle foregathers. Now, so in Galle, we selected Salzburg, China Charity, and Kadiragavar relocated settlements. And in Batiklo, we selected Swiss Village, which is one of the largest settlement, tsunami settlement. So altogether 4, but now when we started the research, we came to know now there are 4 groups in the settlement. For instance, there are old settlers, there are new settlers who have purchased land from the old settlers, and also a group of settlers who have already gone back to the house, right? So, and also we thought of interviewing the host community just to see their the views on relocation 20 years after. So altogether, in Batiklo, we have interviewed 242. In Galle, we have altogether interviewed 188. 188. Then rented purchase 75. Host community 60. Buffer zone 50. Right, and also another 95 from Swiss Village. Right, and 33 from buffer zone, host community 47, and rented or purchase 47. Right. So this rented and purchase means this is also very important. People who were relocated, now they have either rented or they have sold their land illegally to outsiders, and most of them have already gone back to their previous place. Right. So the government say, according to their rules and regulations, you can't sell it. It's another growing issue now. But people have already so gone back to, but they have their own version. They say we signed in front of a lawyer. right? And we have the what do you call it? They call it like an agreement, but the government said, no, you can't do it like that, right? We have given, inform you before you move into the location. But anyway, now these are some of the what do you call the houses. You can see most of the people have already reconstructed their houses and they have added sections, So if you go back now and you can't see the old houses, right? Also there is another, I think, I would say a gated community is emerging out of in and so I will also present more on this group later. So the characteristics I just want to highlight few important. In Batiklo, over 50% lived in the previous place around 21 to 40 years before the tsunami, and 20% were over 41 years or more. So you can the attachment to the previous settlement, the place, and as we know, the government, due to after reimposing the buffer zone, they have already uprooted them from their previous place and forcibly relocated them into a different place. Now, even in Galle, 56% lived in the 21 to 40, and also 20% over 41 years or more. And nearly 80% from Batiklo and also 90% from Galle, they have been living here for the last 16 years, which is also important to note. This is with regard to characteristics of our respondent. Now, when we pose the question, right, awareness of risk before relocation, I mean, nearly 95% of the people who we have interviewed in Batiklo and Galle, especially 88% in Galle, they said we were aware of the risk that we might have to face after relocation. So they were very conscious about, especially the Galle people. The distance will create a lot of issues for them. That is what here I have mentioned. Even in Galle, the distance to the main city, right? Accessing the sea, finding employment in this new area. And also they were very much concerned about losing of social capital like friends. And even in Batiklo, they also, most of them have mentioned 98% distance, even though like the distance is very like 4 kilometers from the previous place, but still they are also very much concerned about the distance. So the point is here, now, when we ask the present economic status of the house we have interviewed, 73% stated that the household income is generally insufficient to meet household expenses in Batiklo. I mean, in Galle, the number has already increased. 86% stated that household income is generally insufficient to meet household expenses. So we also explored their short-term coping strategies, and most of them, as we know, highly relying on their social capital, money from friends, but also a small amount of people, like 1/3 of them, also engaging vulnerable coping activities. Like vulnerable means, like for instance, they pawn their valuables, or sometimes, they get money from money lenders, or they essential goods on credit, right? Which is, I think, it also shows that, they also move into a vulnerable lifestyle. So the point is, here, even in particular, I have said that, it shows that dependency on external groups for their survival. One can argue that they are in a cycle of poverty. Because, when we ask this group the same question 5 years, 15 years before, they gave the same answer, right? Nearly 15% of respondents who have interviewed from Batiklo said that they had to either change or quit employment as a result of, relocation, but the number has already been increased in Galle. Now, economic status of house after relocation is continued. In particular, 38% of the respondents stated that the economic situation of their household got better after relocation and living in the present place for more than 16 years. So I think based on our the interviews and based on our statistic analysis, it is clear 1/3 of the respondents who we have interviewed, they say that that this place is good for us to live and we don't want to move back. And also at the same time, we are having a good economic status and also social status. But 2/3, they have difficulties of coping with the situation. So it's somewhere, it's clear. So just to save time and also probably and situation, because we post this question, we just ask them, identify whether you belong to a very poor group, or non-poor group. And in Galle, you can see 11% said that they are very poor, and also 16% in particular also they said that very poor. But the important point here, 7% of the respondents of the very poor and 73% of poor category households are of the view that their financial situation and social standing have become worse after relocation. So this is with regard to Batiklo, but also in Galle, this is 90% of the respondents of the very poor. 6% of poor category households are of the view that their financial and social standing have become worsened after relocation. And so not only that, but also 80% overall percentage is of the perception that the worsened situation will continue even in the future, right? 93.3% of the poor, very poor, and 90% of the poor. Nearly 92%, 52, this percentage has already been reduced in Galle, but still it is high among very poor and poor. So you can also see that, most of the people whom we have identified as poor or whom we have identified who are suffering from chronic characteristics of characteristics of poverty or chronic poverty, still they don't think that they are in a position to move out of poverty in the near future, but they will stay in the cycle. So that's what they say. But it's I'm not going to go into this table actually. So there is a high, I would say it's not a correlation, but there is a relationship, significant relationship between their economic status and also the question with regard to whether the situation has got better or worse after relocation compared to situation before, both in Galle and Batiklo. Let me also, this is another important point. Impact of location on children and the elderly. This is a very important point, I think. 10% of the children in Batiklo, they have dropped out of school. This is what we already identified. But this number in Galle is 7%. But nearly 18% suffer chronic diseases, and 48% of the respondents stated that at least one household member suffer from chronic diseases. I think most, negative impact is reported, I would say, from elderly. Right? They said that, they did not want to move out of their ancestral places, knowing that, they don't have much time to adapt to the new environment. Why? Because they say they have lost their familiar social environment as a result of forced relocation. Right? So they were very concerned about, now people whom I have discussed this issue, they said that, we are going to miss our burial ground. Right? I don't think that, my son will take my casket from Akvimada God. right? 20 kilometers, it's not going to happen. So the point is, even they say that, I have already missed my friends, right? Relatives. And even now I'm old, so I can talk to them over the phone, but I can't go and meet them in person because I'm old. So I think this is also something important, which we have not in-depthly discussed in most of the literature. I think about children, there are a lot of literature on this, the impact. Then the neighborhood relationship and the relationship with host community. But when it comes to Batiklo, actually Batiklo, 99% of the respondents consider their neighborhood and settlement very peaceful. And this number is very it has already been reduced in when it comes to Galle. 77% respondents consider their neighborhood and settlements mostly peaceful with some quarrels and tensions. I think there is a hidden story for this also. Now, I think we can discuss this openly. Galle is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious place, and also Galle is a multi-caste place, right? But when it comes to Akmimana, it is dominated by one caste group, right? And Buddhist. So this was, I think, one of the main factors for host community to refuse resettled community, because it was, based on our interview, they said, now these fishermen are going to dominate us in the future, right? But they did not want to openly discuss the caste factor, but instead of discussing the caste, they indirectly, right, discuss the bad behavior of them. So the place is not normal, not tranquil as before. They always use filthy words. There are like thieves and drug addicts in the area, right? But when you talk to them very closely, and they say, these people are going to dominate us in the future. So we don't want this to happen, right? So I think. So it was another important, I think, point. But even the planners, implementers, even the DS level officials, they have not thought about these points because they just went after government land. When conflicts, the whole emerge. When conflicts, emerge between host and research community, then only they. What they wanted to know, okay, why it is happening like this, right? And then they realize, okay, there are hidden factors which people they be sensitive, but they didn't want to discuss them openly. And I'll skip this to save time. But this is also another important. 61% of Batiklo say that present housing unit is better than the previous one, which is important. But in Galle, 71% of the respondents are of the view that their previous housing unit is better than the present one, right? Because they always question about the housing quality, lack of common social infrastructure like access roads, transport difficulties, and no collection of garbage. So these are like important. They were very much concerned about this, and this has not been resolved for the last 20 years. So which is also important to note. So received a request to develop proper waste management systems and wastewater disposal system for the settlement to improve their living conditions. Then another important point, migrating back to the buffer zone. A significant proportion of interviewed resettlers, nearly 90%, intend to live in the settlement, while only 10% wanted to leave. But you have to, carefully read this number, because by this time, right, in 2024, most of the people have gone back to the buffer zone, right? And even especially in Galle. So now, when you ask the same question, what do you think about the buffer zone, right? in particular, 92% of the respondents stated that the buffer zone regulation positively impacted the livelihoods of the relocated people. This was a correct decision. But in Galle, 84% of the respondents stated that the buffer zone regulation positively impacted the lives of the developers. This is because mainly now they live in their own house with land titles close to their kinsmen. So the point is, this is the group of people who do not want to move out, who do not like to move out. So this is the group of people who have already taken the decision to stay, right? So most of the people have the new settlers. At least 2/3 of the new settlers have already gone back to the previous settlement, right? So when you pose this question to the people who have already taken the decision to stay, then they say, okay, right, we have taken the decision to stay, so we don't want to go back, and this place is better than before compared to situation before, and also buffer zone is a good decision taken by the government. Now, another group, as I said before, those who have purchased or rented, right? So we have interviewed 47 from Vaticlo, and 74 from Galle, and most of them are people who have purchased these lands. Those days they have paid 500,000 to 1 million rupees. And also, as I said before, they have signed an agreement in front of a lawyer, so they think that it's a legal document, but government says they can't accept it. But it's another emerging issue among resettlers. But renters, they just give 5,000 to 10,000 as their rent, somewhere between this as their rent. And also, majority of the renters and the new settlers who have purchased housing units have done so mainly due to the low price, right? So they say that this is affordable for them, and that is why both in Galle and Vaticlo, they have got these houses for temporary, just to stay in temporary for a short period of time. Then the host community, I think the host community also said that they also have transport difficulties both in Vaticlo and Galle, especially in Galle, but they don't want to move out of the land because that's what even in 98% of the host community members do not intend to leave their settlements, and this number host communities, they have taken the decision to stay because they don't want to move out of the settlement due to the new settlements. And the host communities were of the view that necessary common infrastructure should be built and placed before allowing resettlers to stay, resettlers to settle down in new settlements. I think I just gave some the main findings. I think these are some of the concluding remarks. The bullet point 1, most land relocation efforts have aggravated the vulnerability of vulnerable groups. So as I said before, they have reduced the exposure to tsunami and other coastal hazards, but these efforts have not been helped these people to move out of the poverty. And in some cases, this has defeated the very purpose of reflection as a right, because then one can argue that, okay, they are not exposed to poverty, but now as a result of post relocation, people have become more and more, they are vulnerable to poverty and chronic poverty situations. Then also, I think it's important for us to go for people-centered because participation was very low. That was one of the important points. But even there are settlements where they have actively involved people, and they have given, like for example, Haritagama, they have developed people-centered water management system by Diakoni, and they have given all the services to the community development society, like for example, tractors, Galle houses. They were constructed good quality houses, but still people have already gone back to the buffer zone. Now the PS has already taken all the Galle houses and the tractors to the Pradesi Sabha. So place emphasis on livelihoods, recovery and restoration, admit relocation as a long-term process. I think this is very, very important. Even now, um, uh, the planners and the implementers, they have not considered it as a long-term process because they think it's as a short-term project, short-term activity. Even if you read NIRP policy, National Involuntary Resettlement Policy, they are also they have requested the implementers to closely monitor this group of people who are going to relocate only for 5 years. I think, we don't have to closely monitor this group of the whole families resettled for 5 years, but at least, we need to closely monitor the most vulnerable group for 5 years. And account for pre-existing vulnerabilities of relocate when designing relocation program. This is very, very important because, when it comes to vulnerability, we are also talking about inherent vulnerability, but we have to conduct a proper vulnerability assessment and need to identify the most middle and least vulnerable families. And then we have to relocate these people. And at the same time, we need to closely monitor this most vulnerable group whom we have identified before relocation and for 10 years or more. And it will also help these people to move out of the cycle. Incorporate understanding about the social structure and cultural characteristics into relocation decision making. This is also very important. So these are some of the important, I would say, like policy, like policy guidelines, and So these are some of the publications which I have. We have published based on our work. But the point is, once we completed all our research and we gave our data set to Akviman and Fatiklo Panmunenon, and also we did a few presentations, and they have also intervened to resolve some of the issues people have already, listed from their limited capacity, which is also a kind of intervention from, because always they say that, you people, you write academic papers and reports and, nothing is going to happen to us. But at least, now they have a list of, because we gave them the data set that was something important, and they know how to handle it, and also we give our reports, the basic reports, and now they know the issue that even now they are actively involved in resolving some of the emerging issues. So thank you very much for your kind attention, and this is what I have already found, and it's a huge data set, but still we are in the process of analyzing it. Thank you.